Oh, thanks, Seb. I don't expect that you all know me, but I would be very flattered if you did. I always like to start with a land acknowledgement, especially in light of the fact that we are celebrating Earth Day and Earth Month. Somebody who reads a lot and a lot of speculative fiction, one of the things I've discovered is that when we go to a secondary planet to try and fix our mistakes, it never goes well. So it's really important that we take care of the planet that we're on. With that in mind, the University of Washington acknowledges the Coast Salish peoples of this land, the land that touches the shared waters of all tribes and bands within the Duwamish, Puyallup, Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. As I said, we're here today to talk about taking care of the place we live and how we can do that. Um, I'm really excited to have our first two organizations here. We have Birds Connect Seattle and the Backyard Beekeepers Association. In my mind, birds and bees are not just, the funny things that you talk about in school when you're in the fourth grade. You're like, ha ha ha. Birds and bees are some of our first, legitimately the canary in the coal mine. They are our first and best indicators of when things are going wrong. And so, really excited to hear more about what Birds Connect is doing and how we can support creating a healthy bird habitat and a healthy bee habitat. If you watched the bee movie, you'll know that without bees, there's no food, and that's really important. So, I'm going to turn it over to Carol, as Seb said, when we'll have time at the end of the talk today for you to ask questions. You're also welcome to put them in the chat, and we'll go through those at the end as well. So take it away, Carol, and tell us all about Birds Connect Seattle.
Great. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Carol Rawl. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the development director of Birds Connect Seattle. So we're a local bird conservation organization here, and I'm just going to share my screen here. And because everyone likes to see some pretty birds while I talk.
Looks great.
Move face. There we go. All right. Perfect. So some folks may actually know us under the name Seattle Audubon Society. We rebranded and changed our name 3 years ago. So we've been Birds Connect Seattle, but we have the same great mission, which is to advocate and organize for cities where people and birds thrive. And that's one of our beautiful local species, the common loon there. So kind of think three main elements to the work that we do, and that is community, conservation, and connection. So we've been around for more than 100 years. Most recently, we were located in North Seattle, and we just moved downtown in July of 2025. So our headquarters, as well as our exhibit and retail space, are located right in the heart of downtown. We're in the Denny Triangle neighborhood, right off the light rail station at Nordstrom there. So you can come visit us. But we do our programs all over the greater Seattle area. Our service area extends north through Shoreline over to Mercer Island and as far south as Renton and Burien. And some of our main focus is just protecting birds and habitat. So we're a conservation organization at our heart, but also secondly, connecting people to the joy of birds and outdoor experiences. We talk about the importance of connection, and we think that this connection to both birds and nature helps people build empathy, and that empathy is really a key piece that will inspire future conservationists for birds and for other habitat and wildlife in our area. And our focus is also on urban conservation. So that might be a new concept to some folks. Often when we think of conservation, we think of big forests or out, in the mountains, something like that. But really, wildlife is everywhere. And when we put people and wildlife in close proximity, the way we do in urban settings, that can sometimes intensify the need for conservation and protection of wildlife, but it also provides really unique opportunities for people to connect with wildlife in their own neighborhoods that they work and live. So it's a really special focus, is that urban focus that we so this was alluded to a little bit in the intro, but why do birds matter so much? I think many of us take them for granted. We see them every day. We see crows passing by. We see gulls. We see little brown birds hopping and popping through the bushes of our yards. And birds are really an important indicator of ecosystem health. They serve many important purposes in our ecosystems. Pollination is a key one for our agriculture, both spreading seeds and pollen. They are an important part of various food chains that we have. And when we talk about pest control, they also consume a lot of insects. And Seattle, I don't know how many folks know this, Seattle is ranked one of the rattiest cities in the United States. We're in the top 5 rattiest cities. So birds also play a really important role in rodent control too in our areas. And for some species like our scavengers, they really do play a role in kind of cleaning up of excess garbage and things like that around town. So if we look at how bird populations are doing across the country, they've been declining over 29% since 1970. So that means 1 in 3 birds is disappearing from our neighborhoods. And we just released our largest cumulative data from our Neighborhood Bird Project, which is a local study that we've done over the last several decades. And our trends are showing similar concerning numbers for bird populations locally across all of our study areas as well. So why are birds declining? What's happening here? Part of it is the habitat quality and connectivity. So certain birds rely on, large areas of forest. That's when we talk about connectivity, and also the quality of that. So types of vegetation, trees, and then also unique urban hazards. So free roaming cats are a big concern, especially for smaller songbirds. Bird window collisions are actually the #2 human-related cause of death in wild birds, estimated to kill up to 1 billion birds a year. Lights at night that draw birds off their migration routes and draw them into cities where they become higher risk of falling victim to a window collision. And then also pesticides and rodenticides. That's a really key factor for birds that consume both rodents and insects. And then climate change. Climate change is really impacting the emergence of food sources for birds. It's affecting migration patterns. It's affecting breeding grounds and kind of the climate they'll experience in their traditional breeding grounds. And it's changing the ranges of many birds. And so some of the things that we do as an organization, Birds Connect Seattle really focuses on habitat protection. And that's not just, we think of buying up pieces of land and turning them into parks. That's not exactly what we're talking about. A lot of it is advocating for our tree canopy. Also, we've done a lot of work just recently in Magnuson Park to protect the restored wetland that was there. So it's also about kind of how we use land in unique ways that serves the needs of our community and also the needs of wildlife that share this space with us. Reducing urban threats, we talked about a lot of education around keeping cats indoors or treating windows that are known for high bird window collisions. We also do a lot of fun education events for folks in our community. We have classes where people can learn about birds. And again, like that understanding of birds, building empathy, building excitement around birds in the outdoors is part of that pathway to conservation. And then we have 5 different scientific studies that are all volunteer powered that we run every year. And that's helps us understand our local bird populations and how they're trending. And then also working with local lawmakers and other entities to see how we can incorporate wildlife friendly policies into our city planning as well in our park planning. So this is just a quick little snapshot from our annual report. But I think when I look at something like this with all of these people and all of these birds, I go back to the name that we chose for ourselves when we renamed ourselves several years ago, Birds Connect Seattle. And the connect part of it always stands out for me because we're connecting people to our mission through so many different ways, whether it's children coming to our summer camp, whether it's someone volunteering the first Saturday of every month going to the exact same park to count a bird to see if it's present that's of conservation concern. I just think of all the ways that people are lending their skills and experience in support of our mission, and that's really special. And so how you can get involved if this is sparking some interest for you today. One of the best ways that people find our organization or get interested in birds is through going on one of our bird walks, and we call those our neighborhood bird outings. They're free, they're open to the public. We run about 10 to 12 a month in green spaces all over the city. And so there's no sign up required. You can find a list of those activities on our website, and you can just show up in the morning and see what birds you find with our leader. Another thing you can do is choose to attend one of our events or classes. Lovely little typo there. And you can also visit us downtown. There's an image there of our retail space. We've got some beautiful art installations as well as an exhibit that you can explore. And we do have, additionally, we have our own lunch and learn programs, quick 15 little minute bird talks that happen every Wednesday during the lunch hour as well. So we've got free programs happening downtown. And then spring is a big time for different donation drives. So all of our work as a nonprofit is funded through donations as well as through our retail and our program fees. So that's a great way that you can help support our local conservation mission and really make a difference for birds. We also are powered by about 500 different volunteers in various positions every year. Some of our more popular volunteer activities include participating in our Christmas bird count in December. We also have different opportunities for leadership and retail staffing, things of that nature. And then we also have our own ability to take action by the products that we purchase and the decisions that we make and the representatives that we vote for. And all of those do make a difference for wildlife. So, you know, think about as a consumer and as a voter, how you can make your voice matter and make it matter for birds and wildlife too. And lastly, I'll just give a little plug. There are 2 different birding groups that are associated with the University of Washington. These are the 2 groups, and many of our volunteers are active and kind of co-lead for these UW groups in addition to leading bird outings for Birds Connect Seattle. So this is a great starting place if you're interested in seeing some birds. That's the end of my formal presentation, but I'd be happy to answer any questions about our organization. And I'm not an ornithologist. I'm a development director, so go kind on me if any of your questions are bird related.
I love that distinction, Carol. That's awesome. Um, Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing what folks at the UW are doing. I have a friend, when women reach a certain age, I don't know, maybe for men too, like when you cross the dark side of 50, suddenly like your choices are I'm into sourdough or birding or World War II or the Roman Empire. And I have a couple friends that have fallen hard for birding. So this was really exciting. Oh, this is a great question. So, since it looks like we are only going to have two presenters today, let's go ahead and do this right now. What kind of bird-friendly activities, sorry, I didn't read fast enough, can we work into our day to day? That's a great question, Natalie.
Yeah, I think, when we look at what are the more serious concerns for birds in urban areas, certainly if you're a cat owner or a pet owner, making the choice to keep your cat inside or also keep your dog on leash. Some of our ground nesting birds can really be impacted by off-leash dogs and also off-trail walkers in our larger public park areas, particularly places like Discovery Park or Magnuson Park, where we have some really critical habitat that's impacted by both foot and pet
Yeah.
traffic. Those are great things you can do. And then also, if you've noticed you've had an issue with bird window collisions at your home or your workplace, there's a number of very affordable solutions you can do to help break up the visual reflection for birds. And so that can be even heightened by those people who choose to feed birds with a bird feeder. There's some things you can do to place your bird feeder certain distances from your window so that it's less likely that those birds will fall victim to a bird window collision.
That is great. I just keep my windows filthy, and it turns out that also works.
It is, yep.
That is the lazy girl solution to bird windowing. And I just wanted to, okay, so Lily wants to know what kind of ground nesting birds live in Magnuson.
Yeah, great question. So some of our ground nesting birds include the dark-eyed junco. It's a little brown bird. The spotted towhee is another one. And spotted towhee is one of the birds that we're monitoring for climate change. It's been notified as like the highest risk of range changes due to climate change. So that's a ground nesting bird that you find in Magnuson. There's also a number of different sparrows, like the song sparrow or the Savannah sparrow. We're noticing really significant declines of the Savannah sparrow, specifically at Magnuson Park. So that's another one that would be highly impacted by off-leash pets or people walking off trail.
And I don't know if this is a question you can answer. And it's not really a question, but I'm turning Jennifer shared that she had a tree outside her apartment complex that was removed without a permit and it had a crow's nest in it. And in our old building, we had a tree with a crow's nest in it. And it was so exciting, like to watch those little babies grow and hatch. And so like what can we do?
Yeah, so it is illegal in City of Seattle to remove trees and also remove nests if they are an active nest, if it is a local species. So a crow would qualify. There's just a handful of quote unquote invasive species that it is permissible to remove a nest while it's active. And so most tree removal companies would know that. We get reports all the time of someone wanted to cut down a tree and the tree removal company said, nope, we cannot do that. A, you would need a permit, but B, they've noticed an active nest, even if a
Mhm.
permit has been issued for that tree. And so it depends on the municipality that you live in, but that's something that should get brought up with the city
Great.
to enforce that permit.
Thank you, Carol. Oh, this is a good one. This might kind of apply for both of you. Are there any updates on the proposed pickleball courts at the Magnuson wetland?
Yes, so we did get a statement from Seattle Parks and Rec about, I guess it's maybe 2 months ago now. So for those that don't know the background, there was a proposed outdoor pickleball complex that was going to be built at Magnuson Park adjacent to the wetland area there. And so we, along with thousands of advocates from that utilize that park and folks who advocate for wildlife had made suggestion to the city to choose an alternative site. And so they have indicated that they will be moving forward in planning at this alternative site, which is great. It's much farther from the wetlands. So we're very pleased by that. And, we understand folks love pickleball. It's a great sport. And so the two can be harmonious. We just prefer that it not be next to the wetland.
I love that. Yes. All right. Well, thank you, Carol. I'll invite you to stay on in case we have any questions at the end. And now I'm very excited to welcome Virginia from the Backyard Beekeepers Association. I did not know that y'all were a thing until I did a little searching, and I was like, oh, this really speaks to me. One of my very dear friends, she and her husband have kept bees for years. And one of my most delightful things is every year she gives me a mason jar full of honey. And I have to tell you, like, we go through that so fast because it's the best honey in the world because it's so fresh and new. So, really excited to hear from you about how we can learn more about bees, supporting bees, and being more bee friendly.
Hi, I'm Virginia DeKeel, and I'm with the Backyard Beekeepers Association in Deer Park. And the timing is just perfect here. We have just a lot of us have just ordered our bees and received them, put them in their boxes, and hopefully they're going to do what the bees do. Our mission is basically to promote the art and techniques of beekeeping, not mainly for the small, what do you call it, small scale beekeepers that they do it in their backyards, and anyone else interested. We do have some commercial people in our midst because they always are able to contribute more information that helps the rest of us. And so our main thrust is education. We do have mentors that we can, deal with the new beekeepers. And as far as that goes, we just had our beginning beekeeper classes in March. And then just this last couple of weekends, our apprentice beekeepers education. And all of these are certified by the Washington Beekeepers Association, uh, Washington State Beekeepers Association of WASBA, WASBA, and they also have master beekeepers and journeyman beekeepers education. So as you keep doing your beekeeping, you can learn more, you can share more, you can get more from other beekeepers as far as that goes. So this time of the year, besides receiving your packages and your whatever way you receive your bees and get them in the box and get them going, the main thing is to feed them because there's not hardly anything out there for the bees to munch on. They can't really forage except maybe the early term weeds. you might There might be some other flowers in there. The cool thing about being an urban beekeeper is all your neighbors have something. So the bees will find something within, even up to 5 miles away. It's amazing how far they can go with their little bodies and whatnot, bring back food. Um, so besides teaching, we also practice what we teach. So I have, at this time, I'm going to have two. Usually people start with two hives and go from there if you're successful. If you're not, order more bees, start again. The things that we're trying to do as far as our environment, I guess you can call it, is get more pollinator friendly, fauna out there. And hopefully you get it so that it is also timed throughout the year so that they have something to chew on to forage. And uh, the, also the fact that they require, just like us, we require vitamins, more than just meat, dairy, bread. They require a lot of different items also, and they figure out a way to get it. But if you just have a field of one uniform crop, it may not be enough. So that's where we come in as beekeeper for the honeybees, that is, to supplement their feed. So one of the most important things is nutrition for bees. We want to make sure they have enough and they have a variety and they get their vitamins and minerals. And it's funny because you also want to make sure they have a source of water, whether it is a little pond, a lake, a river. It could even be, if you're not careful, your neighbor's hot tub. They'll figure out a way to get some of that stuff, whatever they need. And it's what's funny is sometimes you wonder how in the world they get their nutrition from, an old pipe that's leaking or a scummy pond or something like that. There's always something that they know what they need and they'll get it. To I was going to say, besides nutrition, you have to make sure that you are helping them fight against pests. The main one is the varroa mite. They call it the varroa destructor, and it can be very destructive. They are much smaller than the bee. They they will feed on the eggs, the larva, the pupa, and the adult. So the whole gamut. If you've got them, you've got to treat for it. My big thing is to use the oxalic acid vaporizer that hopefully will have them fall off the bees and into the bottom, and you can, check out how many there are. If there's only a few, like 3 to 10, you're probably okay. You're not highly infected, the hive isn't. But when you see it spread all over the whiteboard, which you can pull out from the bottom and check and see if they've fallen down. If it looks like pepper has been spewed all over it, it's likely you're infected. You're going to have to re-vaporize again. And bees are actually very tough. If we inhale some of that vapor, you're coughing, hacking it. It's not good for you. But the bees, for some reason, it doesn't affect them as well as as it does us. We do talk about their anatomy, what the bees they are one big super what do we call it? Organization. Every bee has their own job to do, and some of them, depending on the stage of their life, it will change. Believe it or not, once a bee comes out of their cell, they're developed. They already may not know exactly what to do, but the other bees that had come before them will tell them, this is your next job. You're going to be a nurse bee. You got to take care of all the eggs and the brood that's in there and help them along. And then further on, they become household bees. They clean up the hives. They're very clean as far as that goes. They will make the combs for the honey and for the brood. They will guard the front of the hive. And I've seen where you might, if you ever go to a hive and you see right at the entry, there's these little bees that just kind of keep fluttering with their abdomen up. You're going, what is that doing? Well, they're sending out pheromones, letting the other bees that are foraging know that here's home, come here, come back. So that's how they figured that out. Further on in their life, they become foragers. And this is where they spend maybe 50% of their life out there getting nectar, pollen, various items that they need. And they literally work themselves to death. So you hear about that. I mean, the bees definitely do that. I've seen them come in and they're just loaded with pollen on their legs, and they can barely fly back into the hive through the entry and do their thing. Once they are just about done with life, they'll get out and figure out where they're going to die. They don't want to do it right in the hive. So you'll see them outside on the ground, or as I've found them, sometimes they're out by my porch. And I'm always going, are they trying to tell me something? It's like, what are all these bees doing here? Dead. So anyway, we pick them up. As we get into this, when the sap runs, that's when all that activity goes on. When we we do our inspections, maybe once or twice a month. Probably don't want to do it too often. Although new beekeepers are always, what's going on in there? What's going on there? Almost every day is like, let it be. So anyway, one thing that you look for, besides seeing if you can find the queen, uh, she is the biggest one, of course, and under her would be the drones, and under him, as far as size, would be all of the worker bees. An interesting thing is the queen, her only job is to lay eggs. She can lay 2,000 to 3,000 eggs a day. And that's why you see tons and tons of bees usually around their hives. And the drones, sorry to say, they only have one thing. They can't even take care of themselves. They get fed by the worker bees, and their main goal is to mate with the queen. And if they are successful, they die. If they're not successful, come winter, they get kicked out of the hive because they don't do anything, and they use up nutrients and things like that. So they're forced out of the hive in the fall. So it's the worker bees really that do all of the work. They actually decide when they need another queen, because the pheromones from the queen will tell them what her health is like. If she's laying eggs, if she's getting too old. A friend of mine said that in the bee colony, they don't have retirement plans for bees. Either work yourself to death, or the queen gets kicked out, or if there's a new one and they fight, one of them's gone. They don't have one queen within the hive. So when we do the inspections, we look for, if we can see if the queen's there. If she's laid eggs, there's still a queen there. If there's not any brood, you're in trouble. You need to get another queen, or the workers will create a queen. And what they do is they build a special cell right in the middle of the hive, and they feed the larva that's in there nothing but royal jelly. Throughout the whole process of creating a queen, she gets nothing but royal jelly. All the others get some kind of a little bit of royal jelly to begin with, and then they go to bee bread and honey and whatever else that they get fed. But like I say, and if the queen comes out of that cell, and what it does, it looks like a peanut. You're going in there, what is that? Well, it's the queen cell. If she comes out of that cell and she's the only one, great. She has to dry out for a couple of days, goes on her mating run. And that's where the drones all are happy. They're out there. They're trying to mate with the queen. And she actually will mate several times. And it's a good thing for her to be that active because then you have a mixture, of the DNA and different genetic things, and hopefully the hives will be stronger from all that. That's one way they get another queen. Another one is, you heard of swarms, and if we are inspecting and we see at the bottom of the frame that there's more big cells, they look like the peanut with the cup. And if it's covered, then we know there's a queen incubating in there. And if she gets out, what happens is you have either a fight with the old queen and you have a new queen, or the old queen will decide it's time we need another house. So let's skedaddle out of there. 50% of the bees will go with her. And that's what you'll see up in the trees or maybe in the rafters, or I've seen, somebody has seen them in a chimney. Good luck with that one, trying to get that hive out. But that's what they do, and it's a natural thing for them to create another hive. So the queen takes 50%, and then the other queen that's newly hatched, if there's only one, great. She goes through that process of mating, and then she can go ahead and start laying eggs. And like I say, her main job is to lay eggs, make brood. So she has a bunch of bees that look after her. They feed her, they groom her, move her along to make sure she's making hitting all the cells that are in the frame, that kind of thing. So that's the fun stuff. You get into fall, there when there's a dearth of sap, there, everything's starting to brown up. No more sap for them to take, no more pollen, et cetera, et cetera. Then we have to start getting ready for winter. And one of the main things is you want to make sure the varroa mite count does not stay high. That's when in the spring and in the fall is when the varroa mites just go crazy as far as population. And so you got to watch that because they're predators on the bees basically. And the other thing is making sure that they can get through the winter. If it's somewhere that it's fairly temperate, Hawaii, Georgia, places like that, you don't have to worry about it so much. But where we are, yeah, you ever got the cold weather, the snow, etc. You've got to figure out how you want to get them through that cold snap, because there won't be anything for them to eat except what's in their hive, which is basically honey and the supplemental food that you give them. You do need to provide insulation, things like that, trying to help them with the housekeeping once in a while. I mean, the bees will cluster around the queen inside of the hive and keep everything nice and toasty, but some of them are going to die along the way, and so they drop down, and you need to get out there and scrape out everything because they like a clean house, and plus you don't want all that fungus to grow and whatnot from that. So anyway, there's a ton of stuff involved with beekeeping, and you just have to do it. But it is helpful to take the beginning beekeepers class. And I've met with a few people that have not, and they get their bees and they set them up, and it's like, now what? And I'm like, you didn't take a class? I mean, you can get some information out of a book, but only so much. It would be helpful to meet with other beekeepers, and you could share what worked, what didn't work as you get through the winter. Hopefully they're still alive. If they're not, then you've got to do what we call a dead out. Pull it all apart and find out what worked, what didn't work. And a lot of times it could be not, they can deal with cold, but they can't deal with an overabundance of those mites. I mean, there's other things too that might affect them, but up here it's mainly the varroa mites. And then there's the problem of moisture within there. When they're in their hive, of course, they're working, they're breathing just like us, and their condensation happens. So you got to figure out a way to keep it dry in there. Trying to think. Oh, it could be starvation. Maybe they didn't have enough food, or they couldn't get to the food. They tend to move up in the hive, the cluster, and they don't really go sideways. And sometimes you'll see the full frames of honey on the sides, and it's like, well, there's plenty of food. Why didn't they survive? Because they tend to move up instead of sideways. That's why we like to put more food on the top of the frames rather than try to put more on the sides. And let me think here, what else? So that's basically it.
Can I ask a quick question from the chat? Well, so Virginia, thank you so much. Jennifer said, fascinating, fantastic description of the bee process. I 1000% agree. I did not realize bees were so Game of Thrones coded. Like, the queen is taking half the hive
Yeah.
and going
Mhm.
away. Um, anyway, uh, so okay, we have two questions in the chat that I think are great. One is, do honeybees compete with native bees for food or have an ecological impact on native bee populations? So that's our first question.
Yes and no. So there's there are so many different species of bees out there, thousands, and they range from really tiny sand, almost, you almost can't see them, to the bigger bumblebees and that type of thing. And some of them, well, a lot of them do not overwinter in hives. They're out there in their little reed tubes, or they make something in the ground to nest in, things like that. Uh, in fact, they probably do more pollinating than our honeybees,
Hmm,
believe it or not. And so we need to be able to not only keep our honeybees alive and well, we need to provide uh, out in the wild ways for the solitary bees to keep on going. Um, and part of that, of course, is not removing trees, not allowing these different plants that come in that override the natural ones, things like that. So, yeah.
okay. And Susan wanted to know, what food do you provide? Susan, I'm assuming for the bees in the hive.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, actually, in the spring, can provide uh, sugar water. It's 1 to 1, one
I
part
like
sugar.
sugar water,
Yeah, one
but I
part
like it in
sugar, one part
Coca-Cola.
water. And it's not doesn't have to be exact or anything, as long as they're fairly good proportions. And then only until it looks like they're not taking anymore. And then you can also give them what we call pollen patties and protein patties. They're just put on top of the frames, and the bees will eat those. In the winter, you don't want to give them much liquid because it will turn to ice and just, it'd be like an ice box. And that's not what you want in there. And we can just put newspaper and dry sugar on top. They eat that up. Uh, Trying to
So
think of other
basically, bees
things.
want to eat like toddlers, is what you're saying. All sugar all the time.
Yeah. And you don't want to give them too much in the winter. It's a 2 to 1, 2 sugars to 1 water. And the thing is, if you give them too much, then the honey they're producing is basically from the sugar water. So we don't want to do that too often, but just enough to get them through the dearth, which is when the plants start losing all the sap and whatnot.
So, if somebody were interested in having their own backyard hive, what would you suggest they do? Like, what would your first steps be if somebody's like, I have fallen in love with beekeeping? Oh, perfect. Thank you,
Oh, there
Seb.
you go. And I would suggest too, not only if you're in my little area here over in Eastern Washington,
Hmm.
to look up your local beekeeping associations. If you go to the WASBA site, Washington State Beekeepers Association, they have a list of all the different areas and what clubs are there that you can go to for more education. You can also do it online. Trying to think here. Yeah, that's probably the best thing to do besides, grabbing a book about
Hmm.
it. Like I said, the book doesn't give you everything, and some people work better with their hands than just reading. Um, so, so that's it. If you can find a local beekeeping association, that would be the best thing.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask out loud or share in the chat? Give you a minute.
Yes, I'd like to just take a quick opportunity to share. I have the brochure pulled up that Virginia sent out to us. I will also be emailing everybody that registered this brochure as well if you'd like to take a copy with you. But I just wanted to have it up here in the meantime. But um, Virginia, I
And I
did
do
have a
want,
question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, we do appreciate the donations that have come through the combined fund drive. That's helping us a lot.
Excellent. Oh, this is a good one. Carrie wants to know if most cities and towns allow residents to keep backyard bees, if you know.
Uh, yes. In fact, if you let me think here. I'm sure there's different ways to search the internet to find out what the law is concerning keeping bees. I know that here in Spokane, it's based on the size of your lot, um, and everyone's different. So it's best to look, or like I say, go to the local Beekeepers Association and find out from them because they should know. Like for Spokane, it's for my big lot, I can have two. If you're out in the boonies somewhere, you can have unlimited.
My friend has eight. My friend lives in Granite Falls, which is a pretty rural area in Western Washington, and they have
Mhm.
8 hives.
Yeah, we have a journeyman beekeeper who had. I asked him and I said, "How many do you have?" I think he's in Valley, Washington, and he's got 75. So he's got
Wow.
acres and acres, and he's getting to the point where he could be or he is commercial beekeeper. And I was going to say, if you wanted to make a a business of selling honey and things like that, it probably won't be uh, cost effective until you get up into those big numbers. Because right now, beekeeping is a very expensive hobby if you only have one or two.
I have so many expensive hobbies. I don't think I can add any more to my plate. I will say though, for folks who don't know, the U District Food Bank has a vegetable garden on the top roof, on their roof in the building they're in, and they are also keeping bees up there. So it's kind of cool to go up there and see that, to kind of see kind of that whole soup to nuts approach, right? Like they're growing the food that the bees are able to eat. They have the flowers so that there's variety, and then they have honey available um, for their customers, which I think is really lovely.
Yeah, that speaks well for the urban beekeepers. And no matter if you're if you have the penthouse or you're an apartment that you can get up to the roof, if you got just a nice backyard, it's an interesting hobby. It's a fun hobby, but you do want to make sure you do have the right equipment. Um, and I would say when you first start, it could be anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 just to get started with all the
Okay.
stuff.
Well, so that's a good, Carol, I have a question for you. So if somebody who's not me wants to get started on being a bird lady, um, again, I don't need any new hobbies. Um, I like to collect collections of things and I have a little collection of hobbies. What would you suggest for somebody who wanted to get started in birding? Like, should they go out and buy like the most expensive binoculars in the world and like book a trip or like what would like if you were new, if somebody were like, I want to put a toe in, but I don't want to overcommit, what would you tell them?
I would say don't go anywhere, don't buy anything. Go on one of your local neighborhood bird outings. So, Birds Connect Seattle is a great place to start with our free bird outings. You can, if you find it's something that you're really interested in, we sell a variety of different optics in our store, binoculars and spotting scopes. But you can also really enjoy the behavior and the song and the sights of birds without any special equipment right in your own neighborhood parks and in your own backyard or on your patio or balcony. So um, I'd say if you're starting, just start simple and enjoy the small things, the birds and the bees around us.
I love that. Well, so I think on that note, I really want to thank you both, Carol and Virginia, for joining us today. Um, I do think, our small neighbors, our birds and our bees are really important when we think about keeping a healthy planet, a healthy environment, and I appreciate the work you both are doing to make that possible. So thank you for joining us. And for all y'all here, we've recorded this. Seb will send it out. And if you want to share, because you're suddenly like, I want to tell my friend about bees or birds, or the birds and the bees, but maybe don't say it like that. Uh, you are welcome to share it. We'll post it on our YouTube as well. So, with that being said, thank you all for joining us and enjoy the rest of your lunch hour and your 8 found minutes today. Woot woot.
Thank you,
Thanks for
everyone.
the invite.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Bye,
Everyone.
everyone.
Bye.